Up for consideration is a motion on the continuous registration of beneficiaries of the older persons cash transfer program in the country. This is by Honorable Member Thaddeus Nzambia. This motion seeks to have the House resolve that the national government, through the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection, undertakes continuous and timely registration of elderly persons under the older persons cash transfer program. A motion by Member of Dagoretti North, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, is also lined up for consideration this morning on the floor of the National Assembly. This motion is on the policy formulation on implementation and enhancement of EPZ programs in the country. And basically what this motion seeks is to have the House resolve that the national government, through the Ministry of Trade, Investments and Industries, develop a policy whose core objective will be to, among others, address the challenges currently faced by the EPZ, with specific focus on implementing EPZ programs to enhance performance and enable retention of investors across the country, to enhance economic sustainability and allow companies to pursue businesses locally through the 20% waiver to enable them earn a living. That is a motion by the Honorable Member for Dagoretti North, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, that is lined up for consideration this morning. Well, this is a live broadcast of the National Assembly morning sitting. I will now hand you over for this live broadcast that is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Good morning.
Na tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako mteua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, tukusihi tuzame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri hii yetu. Kwa kuomba uteremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki, uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi hii yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amina. Sergeant at Arms to ring the bell for 10 minutes.
Well, the second chairperson of the committee, Honorable David Ochieng, who is currently taking the speaker seat, has just ordered that the quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes. Remember, this is according to the House standing orders that will be allowing members who are yet to walk into the chambers to be able to have that opportunity to get into the chambers to achieve the requisite number of, or rather the requisite quorum for the House to kick off its business. So members will be given 10 minutes to trickle into the chambers before the House commences its business. But a number of motions are lined up for consideration. This morning, the women member for the National Assembly of Laikipia County, this is Honorable Jen Kagiri, motion on the reduction of cost of electricity in the country is also lined up for consideration this morning. According to the member, is that aware that the cost of electricity has been at an all-time high, affecting the cost of living and doing business, acknowledging that the Kenya Power and Lighting Company, PLC, Kenya Power, procures electricity from the Kenya Electricity Generating Company, PLC Kenyan, a government-owned company, and from independent power producers, IPPs, recognizing that Kenyan Power has entered into power purchase agreements, PPAs, with both Kenyan and the IPPs, and procures power from them at unregulated rates, noting that there is need to regulate all IPPs in the country and publicize their locations, stakeholders, directors, management, and their addresses and agreements entered into with Kenya Power. Again, cognizant that recommendations from past task force reports relating to power purchase and rates have not been implemented deeply, concerned that Kenya Power has in the past procured a large quantity of power from the IPPs at a greater cost rather than from Kenyan, leading to higher cost of power. Again, cognizant of the fact that there is need to put in place policies, strategies, and regulatory measures for better planning to moderate the cost of electricity and enable access to energy by all, particularly in the manufacturing sector, to ease the cost of production and doing business. The mover of the motion will be seeking the House to resolve that the Departmental Committee on Energy undertakes an inquiry into the operations of Kenya Power in relation to agreements entered into with IPPs, factors affecting the cost of electricity, including over-reliance on IPPs against available renewable and other energy sources, and measures to reduce it, and submits a report to the House within 120 days. Again, the move of the motion seeks to have the House resolve. In the meantime, the Ministry and Kenya Power should not enter into new contracts with any IPPs until the House makes a resolution on the matter. If you're just joining us, this is the live broadcast of the National Assembly morning sitting on this first day of the month of March, the year 2023. And currently is a quorum bell that is underway, a 10-minute quorum bell for members to walk into the chambers to enable the commencement of the House business. The motion on the reduction of cost of electricity in the country by the Honorable Jen Kagiri will be seeking to have the House resolve that, informed by the reports of previous task forces on the matter, the ministry engages in negotiations with power producers with a view to reducing the cost of power. And again, the ministry and Kenya Power develop suitable strategies for engagements with the IPPs in order to provide relief for electricity consumers and ensure the long-term viability and sustainability of the energy sector. That is a motion that is lined up for consideration. Members, as you can see at the entrance of the National Assembly chambers, are trickling in. Of course, this is in line with the directive that bell be rung for 10 minutes for the members to be able to walk into the chambers for the House to achieve its requisite forum to be able to commence its business. Honorable Geoffrey Ruku also has a motion that is lined up for consideration this morning. The motion on development of a policy and funding for junior secondary schools. Development of a policy and funding for junior secondary schools. And according to this member, is that aware that communities have continuously established learning institutions within their localities to address the inadequate physical facilities to support the attainment of universal access to education. Again, noting that the Kenya Vision 2030 envisioned progressive establishment of more schools, expansion and rehabilitation of existing ones in order to improve access to education. Member noting that further the huge sums of funds, particularly under the national government constituencies, that is the majority whip. Yeah, the Sergeant at Arms has just signaled that the quorum has been achieved. So I will now hand you over for this live broadcast that is brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. Good morning. My name is Kamche Menza.
I order the bell to be stopped. I confirm that we have quorum. Order, members. Order. Order. Let's proceed with order number 1.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
With Honorable Majority Whip.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, March 1st, 2023, this morning's sitting. Number 1, first half National Government Budget Implementation Review Report for the financial year 2022-2023 from the Office of the Control of Budget. 2, report of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 2022 and the certificates therein. A, Central Bank of Kenya. B, Public Sector Accounting Standards Board. And C, University of Nairobi Pension Scheme. Number 3, reports of the Auditor General and the financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 2021 and the certificates therein. A, Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology. B, Rift Valley Institute of Science and Technology. C, Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital and Research Hospital, sorry. D, Moi Teachers Training College, Baringo. And E, University of Nairobi. Honorable Speaker, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following constituencies for the year ended 2021 and the certificates therein. A, Kitui Central, Machakos Town, Narok North, Makwiny, Nakuru Town East, Kitui West, Mwingi West, Kiambu, Tongaren, Shinyalu, Nambale, Kiminini, Kiambaa, Ikolomani, and Butere. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
I hope those who have their questions listed in the order paper are in the House. And this chance goes to the Honorable Umul Khair Kasim of Mandera County. Give the mic to for Mandera. Umul Khair Bash. Is she in the House?
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Speaker.
Just approach the table if you have confusion. Just approach the table to assist. Thank you, Honorable Wako. Give her the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask the following questions to the Cabinet Secretary for East African Community, the ASALs, and the Regional Development. Could the Cabinet Secretary clarify whether there are any interventions that the government is undertaking to assist people of Mandera County from the adverse effects of the prolonged drought? Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of the total sum of money and the social assistance that the government has mobilized from the government ministries, development partners, and the private organizations towards alleviating drought and famine, particularly in Mandera County, and indicate whether the assistance has reached the target population? Could the government consider providing food rations to the affected families living in the drought-stricken areas during the upcoming holy month of Ramadan? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I had asked a question last year in the last session, and from the Ministry of Water and Sanitation, I haven't received any response yet. Please guide us on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mulher. This question asked today shall be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Regional Development. I hope the chair is in the House. And as to the question asked in the last session, you probably is aware that the questions lapse. They're not like the bills and motions. So you will have to ask the question again afresh so that it then is lined up for reply in the usual manner. The next question is to be asked by the Honorable Peter Lochakapong, member for Sigor. Is he in the house? Yeah, he's in the house. Give him the mic. You can move to the mic just in front of you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question 002 of 2023 to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration. 1. Now, what action has the government taken to arrest the officers who shot and killed over 100 heads of cattle belonging to Mr. Domoreng Todokor of ID number 309-60010 and Mr. Tepanyang Lokamar of ID number 309-66099 of Masol location near Kainuk area. 2. When does the government intend to compensate the two families for the loss of cattle and livelihood through police shooting? 3. Now, could the Cabinet Secretary consider deploying National Police Reservists in the North Rift region and particularly in Pokot Central sub-county to curb the increasing insecurity incidences? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. This question shall be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs. Is the chair in the House or the vice chair? The Honorable Peter, you know the question that was asked earlier and directed to your committee. I hope you're able to handle. The first question that was asked, I didn't know you in the House. It's advised that chairs and their vice chairpersons be looking at the order papers so that if there's an issue that concerns your department or your committee in the House, to be able to, take notes. Thank you. The third question to be asked this morning is by the Honorable Umulher Harun MP. I don't know if she's in the House. With the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question 3 to the Cabinet Secretary for Education. Could the Cabinet Secretary state the tax exemption measures on sanitary pads the government has put in place to ensure they are tax exempt? Question 2, what measures is the government putting in place to ensure equal and timely distribution of sanitary pads to all school-going girls, especially those in rural areas and informal settlements? And question 3, what plans has the ministry put in place to ensure efficient and sustainable ways of addressing the challenges experienced by young girls as a result of menstrual cycles? Mr. Speaker, this is important because we're in the budget-making process, and this is something that we can give extra attention to, especially with the rising costs on matters sanitary pads and menstrual health hygiene. Thank you.
Important. This question shall be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Education. And I hope the Honorable Meli is in the House or is going to be informed that this is urgent and important as the member has indicated. Next order.
Order number 8, motion. Development of policy on standardization and production of school uniforms in the country.
Members, this motion is almost spent. It has a balance of 16 minutes. And at the time of closing the last time it was debated, there was no one on the floor. I think the person contributing had finished his time. Are there any members who want to contribute to this? The Honorable Nikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute on this motion. Mr. Speaker, this motion is extremely important in our education system. The first question to ask is, do we need uniforms in schools, or can children go to school without uniform? In my view, The answer is yes. There are two important issues on the area of for having a uniform. One in discipline. Once there's a set of uniform that children are expected to have, it's a sign of discipline that they'll keep those uniforms, they'll keep them clean, and therefore you get some uniformity, and it helps in enhancing discipline. Number two, Mr. Speaker, uniforms in our circumstances in this country where people live in very social different backgrounds, but the children go to the same school, give us a sense of social equity. When children are in the same uniform, they feel the same, so that their backgrounds, their economic backgrounds, actually is not apparent just on looking, and that is extremely important. If you left it that kids will go to school with whatever clothes they have, it will be apparent when children come to school what their social background is. And sometimes kids even get embarrassed, depending on the kind of clothes, the kind of shoes that children will wear. So I think it is an important aspect of education that we have uniforms. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, what is important, and that the real object of this motion is actually the cost of uniform. Mr. Speaker, the cost of uniforms in this country is unbelievable. You go to schools and the amount of money that's spent in secondary schools, like these secondary schools, the uniforms are a big proportion of the school fees. But when you go to secondary schools, it's out of this world. What is expected of kids to have? They are supposed to have, if girls, they are supposed to have a skirt, they will have blouses, they are supposed to have a sweater, they are supposed to have a windbreaker, the things that kids don't normally use at home. Even if they get the kind of shoes they're supposed to have, they'll have the normal school shoes, they'll have shoes for sports, they'll have shoes for bathroom, in circumstances where otherwise these children would not afford that in their home situation. But now they are forced, when they're in school, to have this. Mr. Speaker, in an average family in this country, when one child goes to a secondary school, the cost of that one child to the family is enormous. If you look at the resources that go, the single child, apart from the school fees, just drains the family in terms of the requirements in school. So I think it is important we set a standard that will actually support the families. Mr. Speaker, there is therefore need for regulation. And what we are asking for basically is a policy. I think that's what this motion is asking for. And in my view, what is happening now, why we need that, is there are cartels in school uniform. When kids report to school, they are supposed, in some cases, to pay directly to the school for the uniform, and then they are provided. And basically, if you look at the cost that the kids are faced with, the parents are faced with, is much, much higher than what you would find in the open market. Mr. Speaker, it has gone to an extent where even in the market, there are actually cartels. Children are directed to specific shops. In some cases, when schools open, the shopkeepers actually come to schools with the connivance of the heads, so that they actually are paid directly. And the costs are extremely high. Mr. Speaker, that is something we must bring to a halt. When you talk to parents, when schools are open, there is obvious exploitation. There are cartels involved in this, and I think school heads are involved. There is therefore need for a policy and some form of regulation. But Mr. Speaker, I would advise that actually this policy should just deregulate the market. The school should just say, this is the kind of color we need, this is the kind of material. Where you make it, so long as it's decent, should be your problem. So parents, some parents are actually even tell us themselves, they'll get the cloth and make the uniform. So why are we insisting they must buy it at a certain place, they must buy from a certain shop? I think that is actually the best way forward to avoid these cartels. Mr. Speaker, I don't think we should go to the extent of actually getting the government to be involved in production of clothes or regulating production of uniform, because that will bring us into another bureaucracy. And once you get into that bureaucracy, again, cartels will come in and the cost of uniform will go high. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this is an area we should get into, save the parents the costs that are necessary as we clothe the children in similar uniforms for purposes of discipline and purposes of social equity. But there's an important issue, Mr. Speaker, that we should look at. Is this something that should be coming at this point, considering the outcry, the hue and outcry we have been having? Is it something that should not have been in the policy of the Ministry of Education a long time ago? If you look at the order paper today, what you are seeing is actually a deficiency in policy governance overall. This one is talking about uniform. If you go to motion, to order number 9, we are talking about registration of beneficiary in the older cash transfer person. Again, these are things that are affecting families that should actually be in policy, in governance. They don't need to come as motion. Mr. Speaker, if you go to order number 11, again, is the issue of electricity. So what you are seeing, and then number 12, the issue of funding for secondary school.
Order,
so
order. I mean, you are a ranking member now. You cannot be anticipating debate. We are debating order number 8.
Seeing it. So, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I support the motion, but the order paper, the whole of this morning is indicating there is a deficiency in policy, in governance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable Nikal. If there were no deficiencies in all these places, there will be no need for Parliament in the first place. There will always be a deficiency somewhere, one place or the other. Honorable members, the time allotted for this particular motion has lapsed, and I now do call upon the move of this motion, the Honorable Gadoni Muchomba, to reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to take this opportunity to thank this Honorable House for the kind of support that I have received through this motion and the kind of debates that have been flowed around the issue of standardization of uniform through a government policy. But before I continue, Mr. Speaker, because I have some time, I would want to donate 2 minutes to the Honorable Itonga Mukunji, MP for Manyata. Thank you.
Okay, the Honorable Mukunji.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Wamuchomba, for the 2 minutes. Honorable Speaker, I want to start by saying that this country is experiencing a lot of economic downtime at this time. And Honorable Speaker, there is unwritten fees that are coming to our schools, our day schools and our secondary schools, in the name of school fees, in the name of school uniforms. And Honorable Speaker, it has become a challenge because while the government subsidizes the school fees, the school uniforms are left to the principals of those schools and maybe the BOM members to decide. And it has become a challenge. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, I was looking at one school fee structure which was requesting 30,000 Kenya shillings for school uniforms, Honorable Speaker. And I feel this is actually a motion that will set things right by standardizing what is required for our day schools and our secondary schools. Honorable Speaker, our textile industry will benefit a lot if we are able to tap into what they are doing and ensure that we get uniforms that are standard. We can talk of blue uniform. Wherever a parent gets it should be accepted in those schools, Honorable Speaker. And that way, we'll avoid businesses being done by principals of schools and BOM members for the sake of our education system. The right to education, Honorable Speaker, should not be determined by the uniform we wear.
Your 2 minutes are over.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Before I give my submission on what I have heard from the members in the House, I would want to donate another 2 minutes to the youngest member of Parliament, a young, aggressive young lady, nominated or specially elected, Honorable Harun Umu.
Very well, Honorable Omuchomba. Next time you donate your time once, so that you don't have to keep coming back. Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to contribute on issue number 8. I definitely support the policy on standardization because I believe while addressing the issue on school uniforms, we'll also be able to address the issue on Muslim students, especially wearing the hijab in schools. A lot of institutions have a policy, and this is a matter that has also gone to court. But with this new policy, we'll be able to address that so that there'll be standardization across institutions, both religious and non-religious institutions, because with that, we'll not have infringement of rights. From my own experience, I went to a school where we were not allowed to wear hijab, and this is something that kind of affected me negatively, and a lot of children are withdrawing from top national schools because of this issue. So this will allow standardization across board, whether Muslim, Christian, or any religion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Like I had said earlier at the introduction of my submissions, I cannot take for granted the kind and the weight that I have had and received from honorable members of this House along the motion that I introduced towards standardizing school uniforms and coming up with a government policy so that we can be able to bring some soberness in the industry. Honorable Speaker, the reason why this motion was introduced is because of the many complaints we have received as members of Parliament, especially during this time when we are introducing the junior secondary school in our primary schools. Honorable Speaker, yesterday I was in my village, in a village called Kamba, and I interacted with parents of Kanyore Primary School, one of the largest primary school I have in Githunguri, Githiga Ward. And it was shocking for me to learn that most of the JSS learners are still at home because they cannot afford the new uniform that has been introduced. Remembering that they were in the same primary school, now they have graduated to JSS, the same primary school, but they have to buy new uniform. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, this is happening across the country. It is time for us to standardize and say, if you are to introduce new uniform, what material should we adopt? What quality? At what price should we not exceed? Because we have had schools that add profits on top of the basic requirement of uniform. A mere shirt that is worn by a boy, age 7, should not go beyond 4,500. In the market, the same shirt go for 800 or 1,000 at most. But why should a school dictate that a shirt worn by a grade 1, grade 2 boy be paid for beyond 4,500? Mr. Speaker, our schools are not business centers, but unfortunately they are becoming uniform business centers. Our teachers are not businessmen within the school compounds, but unfortunately they become active businessmen. Cartels of uniforms have come up. In my Githunguri constituency, parents are forced to go to Kiambu town, 26 kilometers. Yet we have a town in Githunguri where there are tailors. But our tailors are not involved in the making of the uniforms. A certain businessman who is moneyed has to influence the teachers to direct all the sales to their shops, and therefore rendering our tailors useless. Mr. Speaker, my motion towards standardization seeks the Ministry of Education to come up with a policy and guide on the quality, the pricing, the buying and the making, and even the color. Mr. Speaker, I have gathered a lot of contribution points from members here that we actually can standardize in counties. We can decide county 001, public schools can wear a certain color. County 022, like my county, we can standardize and direct that they wear a certain color, so that we stop this whole business of uniform vending across the county. I can buy uniform in Mombasa for a child who is in Nairobi, because tailors in Mombasa can make uniform in a cheaper way and make it cheaper for a parent. Mr. Speaker, I am one of those that came into this house for the second time as a member of parliament, having campaigned along the bottom-up policy, and therefore I would recommend that we standardize uniform through the Ministry of Education, so that we can allow our tailors in the villages to start making uniforms, open up the market, create competition, and lower the price for the Kenyan parent who is suffering. And therefore, I beg to reply. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Muchomba. I really share with your sentiments. Honorable members, I order that this question be put, the question on this motion be put during the next sitting for reasons indicated under Standing Order 53.3. And now, members, I wish to recognize the presence in the Speaker's Gallery of students from Ongata Senior School, Kajiado North in Kajiado County, and students from St. Hannah Boys High School, Langata from Nairobi County. They are welcome to follow proceedings of the House this morning. Next order.
Order number 9, motion. Continuous registration of beneficiaries to the Older Persons Cash Transfer Program in the country.
I can't see the Honorable Zambia on the panel. Honorable Thaddeus Zambia.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that, aware that Article 57 of the Constitution outlines the measures to be taken to ensure the rights of elderly persons, noting that the elderly persons, particularly the vulnerable background, who are in the dire need across the country, require financial aid for their sustainability in regard to their health and well-being. Recognizing that the Elder Persons Cash Transfer Program, launched in 2007 with the purpose of facilitation of a monthly cash transfer to the disadvantaged and vulnerable elderly persons from identified deserving households who are 65 years and above across the country, concerned that registration of persons of 65 years and above across the country, concerned that the registration of persons of 65 years and above was last conducted in the year 2016. Constant of the fact that there are many elderly persons who have since attained the age of 65 years and are yet to be registered under the Elder Persons Cash Transfer Program, further concerned that the new entries, technological mode of fund transfer and development, digital registration of elderly persons, inadequate monitoring and irregular receipts of funds, this House resolves that the national government, through the Minister of Labor, and Social Protection undertakes continuous and timely registration of elderly persons under the Older Persons Cash Transfer Program. Honorable Speaker, let me start by confirming that the cash transfer for older persons was launched in 2007 with the aim of providing a source of regular income for senior citizens to meet their basic needs. In 2013, there was enactment of the Social Assistance Act by the Parliament, which established the National Social Assistance Authority tasked with providing social assistance to persons in need. The National Social Protection Policy that ensures that there is the delivery of social assistance, a right of social security to the vulnerable, is framed through the Social Assistance Act of 2013, which further led to the establishment of the National Safety Net program that housed the 5 cash transfer programs, including the cash transfer for the elderly, the coordination and overall management of the cash transfer program for the elderly rest of the national level, and that cascade to the location through sub-counties. That is the sub-count level.
Order. Don't remember we just come in. You just go back to the bar and come back and go to the right side you want to go. Go back to the bar. When you get here, you cannot disclose what you've done. Just go back to the bar, bow, and come back to the house normally.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for instilling discipline to our members. They are still learning, we understand. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was trying to say that the beneficiaries of this program have to be 65 years of age and above, under the criteria of geographical location and income. Honorable Speaker, Article 57 of the Constitution of Kenya, 2010, outlines the need to address the challenges faced by the elderly and guarantee their freedom and fundamental rights. Cash transfers for the elderly tend to ensure the challenges such as basic needs facing the elderly and that they are addressed. Most of the beneficiaries can at least afford 2 meals in a day when the funds are available, and this diminishes the chances of malnutrition. Honorable Speaker, the vulnerability of falling to ill has also been addressed through cash transfers, which help them to maintain, to access medicine and pay for their transport to their health facilities. Honorable Speaker, I am pushing to have continuous registration of the elderly for cash transfers that cannot be overstated, to be increased to ensure that the elderly live the modern life. There are so many challenges threatening the risk of poor health, sickness, injuries, poverty, whereas this keeps on increasing with the beneficiaries qualifying every year. Honorable Speaker, the government of Kenya recognizes the importance of taking care of the old and the vulnerable. And in 2007, there was a budgetary allocation for the program, as well as the number of beneficiaries have been increasing significantly. Honorable Speaker, as a result, this program has made remarkable achievements, such as access to basic health care, improved household food security, the establishment of small-scale income-generating initiatives, and dignity for the beneficiaries. However, the registration of cash transfers for the elderly came to stop in 2016. That is where the main concern is. 2016 is when the last registration was done. That is 7 years down the line, meaning that there are so many people who are elderly and have attained that age of 65 and above who are not benefiting. And as a result, Honorable Speaker, they are suffering so much, and the government has to intervene through making sure that we have timely and continuous registration for the elderly. Honorable Speaker, Being aware that there are so many challenges which are facing this program, mostly service delivery challenges have had a negative effect on the effectiveness of this program. It has been noted that the delivery to the beneficiaries has been adequate and not in a timely manner. There has also been delays. The government has been delaying disbursement of these funds. At the times they take like even 3 to 4 months without the release of the funds to the beneficiaries. So the performance of the program has also been affected by irregular and unpredictable payments. Inadequate monitoring of the program has contributed to its ineffectiveness. So we need to have a serious monitoring of this program, the way we do release monies to free secondary education. We have to keep on monitoring how the funds are being released. Honorable Speaker, the beneficiaries who have qualified need to be registered and enjoy the benefits that come with cash transfers to cushion them from poverty and inaccessibility to basic needs. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude by stating that despite many challenges currently facing the cash transfers program for the elderly, there is a consensus that the registration of the program for the beneficiaries has to continue from where it is stopped, that is 2016. Honorable Speaker, the beneficiaries, the benefits of the program are crucial to the elderly, especially in terms of provision of their basic needs. Further, given that the entire economic situation of the country and the world, there is a lot of adverse effect. That is, there is a lot of drought, increase in the cost of living, and there is also a need to ensure that the beneficiaries who qualified since 2016, that is 7 years down the line, are registered in the program, and the continuous registration has to take be taken with immediate effect. Honorable Speaker, you bear me witness, all these members of parliament from the 290 constituencies, they have been facing this challenge from the elderly. When we are in the field dispersing our bursaries, the auditor says, who just visit your home, come to the office, thinking that the members of parliament are the ones supposed to give them the cash transfer or the stipend. So, Honorable Speaker, as I conclude this contribution to the elderly, I would urge the members, we push the government to make sure that at sub-county levels, and especially in our chief's office, there is continuous registration of any elderly person who attains 65 years of age, so that we can have all the elderly benefiting from the same fund. And I would also suggest that from the records, those who have died, they need to be replaced. There must be monitoring of the data from the sub-county level, I mean from the village level to the sub-county level, where now we have the constituency offices. And the honorable members, I think we can have a program whereby we can, our office, our staff can work with the sub-count officers from the national government, right away from the grassroots, that is from the assistant chiefs to chiefs, so that we can identify all those members who have not been registered and they have attained that age of 65 to make the smooth running of the registration. Honorable Speaker, I now open the motion for them to the members so that now they can deliberate on it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And before that, I would like to call upon Honorable Parashina to second the motion. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Parashina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to second the motion by Honorable Zambia on to continue registration of beneficiaries to the older person cash transfers in the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, I start by we need first of all to acknowledge that there is a quite good population of the elderly in our constituencies, many of whom are not registered with the government special program, and that is denying the elderly social protection. The nature of our rural constituency, like Kajiado South, where I come from, or the one I represent, we fall under ASAL areas whereby we have minimum road networks, which is denying the elderly the access to government offices at the urban areas. There is a prevalence of disability with the elderly, and when they face the disability, this also affects their productivity. And when they are affected, they are not in one way or another able to take care of themselves. The elderly at the moment, since you see their registration was done last in 2016, I can guarantee they don't, when we go home and when we talk to them, they are not able to access health care and medication. And this is because they don't have any other source of income. The current situation in our country, where we are facing a dying situation of drought, it is really affecting these elderly and is making them to be affected so much that they don't have another option of how to survive. Right now, of late in our society, family responsibility has also turned to be to the elderly, and this is to our elderly women whom take care of their grandchildren. That is in the villages. And when we meet these also elderly people, they have turned to be beggars. They have turned to be beggars because they don't have any other source. So I second the motion, and I wish to plead with my fellow members that we are aware that our elderly are being isolated now. And if the people isolate the elderly and the government again isolate the elderly, then we don't know where they are going. We need to acknowledge and appreciate that these elderly people, most of them, they have contributed in the building of this nation, either formally or informally. So it is a time now, this motion can be debated and several ideas can come in, but the main issue is that let us retain and let us start the process of registration. I would like to second the motion and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Honorable Pashai. Honorable members, I also wish to recognize the presence of the public gallery of students from Kanyakine High School, from South Imenti in Meru County, and students from Muslim Academy Primary School from Zarehe in Nairobi County. We welcome them, as usual, to follow the proceedings of the August House. Honorable members, now I proceed to propose the motion that, aware that Article 57 of the Constitution outlines the measures to be taken to ensure the rights of the elderly persons, noting that the elderly persons, particularly from vulnerable backgrounds, who are in dire need across the country, require financial aid for their stability in regard to their health and well-being. Recognizing that the Older Persons Cash Transfer Program, launched in 2007 with the purpose of facilitation of monthly cash transfer to the disadvantaged and vulnerable elderly persons from identified deserving households who are 65 years and above across the country. Concerned that registration of persons of 65 years old and above was last conducted in 2016, cognizant of the fact that there are many elderly persons who have since attained the age of 65 years and are yet to be registered under the Older Persons Cash Transfer Program, and further concerned that the program has in the recent past undergone unprecedented encounters in regard to new entries, technological mode of fund transfer developments, digital registration of elderly persons, inadequate monitoring and irregular receipts of funds, this House resolves that the national government, through the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, undertakes continuous and timely registration of elderly persons under the Older Persons
cash transfer program. And the first member to have a bite at this cherry would be the Honorable Charles Ngusia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion. From the onset, I would like to take this opportunity to thank and congratulate Honorable Zambia, my brother, for coming up with this important motion affecting the whole country. In fact, this is not a constituency issue, it is a national issue. I also take this opportunity to thank the previous government for operationalization of this cash transfer program. We started badly, but we are doing very well in terms of disbursing this cash, because we have seen services improving from actually centralized level to ward levels, Mr. Speaker. I don't need to highlight the issues of benefits of cash transfer program. Number one, it improves the living conditions of our elderly, and we've seen so many cases where this cash is given to vulnerable people. They survive by buying their food. They go to actually to hospitals, and elderly people are vulnerable when it comes to issues of health. So it is a very important cash transfer program. It also helps them in accessing the economic and social services. And we have seen many cases, those who have received this money actually even opening businesses and keeping them busy. And by doing so, keeping them active, it will also help them in aging gracefully. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a very important cash transfer program. The other issue actually on this cash is it has helped in the reduction of extreme poverty and what we call intergenerational transfer of poverty. So this cash needs to be really supported by everybody. We recall the last exercise which was done countrywide was 2016. And this is now, we are in 2023, 7 years ago. And majority of the people who used to access this cash have passed on, or maybe they are no longer existing, and we have not seen any replacement. Majority of the people who are at the age of 60s, they are now at the right bracket to access this cash. And yet, the Ministry of Social Protection has not updated the register. It is high time we do this exercise in an open and transparent manner to ensure those who rightfully need this cash, it is done. And I'm calling upon our next budget. We need to consider increasing the budgetary allocation for this cash transfer program so that we can have as many people as possible in all the 290 constituencies accessing it, if we have seen the benefits of it. With those few remarks, I don't need to labor more. Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
The Honorable Kirwa. You know, when I'm presiding, there's no two rules about this. If you are next in line, you contribute. Honorable Kirwa, this is your chance to contribute on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this motion about cash transfer for the elderly. It is truly a motion that needs attention from all members, and as a nation we need to look into it. The cash transfer for the elderly has made a big difference in this country in improving the living standards of the elderly and also reduction of poverty. From 2016, since the registration took place up to now, there is several elderly people who have qualified to be also in this program, but for some reason or another, they've not been added into the roll. And as such, Mr. Speaker, I urge the social services really to take time and consider registering new members, which are a lot of them, but more than anything, there has to be a way that we need to increase the amount that they are receiving at the moment. I think it's about 2,100, but has to be increased so that it also meets with the standards of living that has also increased in the country. If you go to the rural areas or a constituency like Mosop, as I go around, the question that I receive a lot is the older generation is asking me, when are we going to get the cash transfer? When are we going to get registered? Because a very small percentage of the elderly in my constituency really receive, but a huge population of them does not receive this cash transfer, although they've qualified by age, but some way, somehow, even then, when the registration took place, some of them never got an opportunity to be registered to receive this cash transfer for the elderly. So I support this motion that we go back and do the registration again and also consider every single one of those citizens who have qualified, but more than anything also consider the standard of living if we need to increase it. But beyond anything, I believe that every citizen who has qualified should be able to receive, and the new registration should take place, and it will make a difference in the lives of the citizens of the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support the motion.
Well said. The Honorable Edith Nyanze.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate Honorable Nzambia for coming up with this motion on transfer of cash to the elderly. Actually, if there is a problem, I'm sure each and every one of us gets on the ground is when the elderly people come to us to ask when are they going to be in the file, when are they going to be registered, when are they going to start getting money. So there's need to standardize, there's need for continuous registration of this fund so that when one hits, let's say 70 years, that they are automatically registered. Because this will really help them, we help the elderly to get this money, because when one gets older, they are exposed to many diseases, they get weak, and this is the time they really need the money. Most of these people are retired, most of these people do not have enough energy to work for themselves. So this cash comes in handy, especially in meeting their hospital bills. And I would even suggest that in the future, this money could even be used to actually help them register for NHIF. Because from the 2,000, if they could be getting just 500 from this cash transfer fund, if they could be getting 500 and then it's registered, it's put in NHIF, then this will cater for their medical needs. So this is very important. It's very important to have this program being done continuously, because this will help. This helps the poor households to reduce extreme poverty and intergenerational transfer of poverty. And continuous registration would improve also our economy. It will also improve on the health of the elderly people. So I say that I support this motion because it will enable our elderly people to be economically stable. But there's also another problem which I've noticed, especially when these elderly people get older, there is no one to take care of them. There's a problem of insecurity. Like last month, there's one old woman who was killed in my village, who was about 90 years after getting the 8,000, because someone was trying to strangle her to get that money. So there's also need for the security of this money. As they get registered, they also need the family members to take good care of them so that they are not exposed to insecurity, because people are getting poorer and poorer every day. So 8,000 wouldn't mean so much to them, so it would attract, sometimes it attracts. Some people are interested in this money. So, Mr. Speaker, I say I support continuous registration of this cash transfer fund so that we standardize. It should not just be for a few people, but for everyone who reaches the age of 70 or 65 and above. Thank you. I support the motion.
Thank you. The Honorable Pukose.
Mheshimiwa Spika, nashukuru kwa kunipa fursa hii ili niweze kuchangia mjadala ambaye imeletwa na Mheshimiwa na hadi wa sasa unakuta hawa wajumbe wengi wanapoenda nyumbani wanapata ya kwamba wasee wanauliza pesa yetu, sisi wengine tumefikisha hiyo umri ya miaka 65 na hatujaandikishwa. Ni lini tutaandikishwa? Kwa sababu hiyo ndio imekuwa mjadala kubwa kule mashinani. So Mheshimiwa Speaker, nafikiri hii nyumba tunaiomba iunge hii mswada, na mimi naiunga, kwamba iwe mambo ya registration, kuandikisha hao wasee iwe ni process ya kufanywa kila wakati, kwa sababu mtu anaposaliwa sio wote wanasaliwa safari moja. Leo mwingine amesaliwa, kesho mwingine, na watu wanasaliwa siku tofauti tofauti. Kwa hivyo watu wanaufikia ule umri ya miaka 65 wakati tofauti. Na kwa hivyo ukifanya mambo ya kusajili, inatakana kusajiliwa kila wakati, so that ile ofisi ya social services, ile kwa mfano katika constituency yangu ya Endebesi, ile ofisi ya social services pale karibu kwa ofisi ya DC, iwe ikifanya registration kila siku, kwa sababu wale wafanyikazi wa serikali wanapoandikwa wako wanakula mshahara kila wakati, na wewe unapoingia kule ofisini ni msharti msee akuje, kwa sababu hii mambo ya kuandikisha wengine na inaandikishwa mara moja pengine baada ya miaka. Sasa kwa mfano iliandikishwa mwaka 2016, sasa hii ni mwaka 2023, ni karibu miaka 7 zilizopita ndio hiyo mambo ya registration ilifanywa. Kwa hivyo tunapofanya registration usajili mara moja kwa muda mrefu hivyo, inachangia pia katika ufisadi, kwa sababu wale wanakuja pale wengine ndio wataandikishwa na wengine wanakosa kuandikishwa. Ndio unapoenda mashinani unakuta kuna wale wasio wanapokea hiyo maruburubu na kuna wale hawapati hizo maruburubu, na wale hawapati hiyo maruburubu wanaumia. Wale pia wanapata saa nyingine pia malipo. Hii inatakana iwe ikilipwa kwa wakati ufaao na iwe inalipwa kwa njia ambayo ni mzuri. Wakati mwingine unapoenda katika ile foleni ya hao wasee kupata hizo maruburubu, unakuta laini ni mrefu, wasee wamekuja pale mapema, wanaanza kulwa na njano. Unajua ni shida kubwa. Unakuta wasee wako katika laini wanaongoja chakula, wanaongoja kupata ile maruburubu, na hiyo maruburubu pengine imekuja baada ya miezi karibu 6. Na unajua wakati tulipoenda hata uchaguzi, hiyo pesa ya maruburubu ya wasee haikuwa inalipwa, imeanza kulipwa juzi na serikali hii ya Rais William RUTO. Kwa hivyo unapata ya kwamba wasee wengi wakati huo tulikuwa tunaangalia, unaenda kule mashinani, wasee wengi wanalia, wanasema tuko na njaa, tuko na shida mingi. So Mheshimiwa Speaker, mimi nafikiri hii jambo ambalo limeletwa na Mheshimiwa Zambia ni mambo mazuri. Sisi tunataka hii nyumba iamue, na hiyo pesa iwekwe na kamati yetu ya budget, iwekwe kwa wakati mzuri, na serikali pia ifuatilie kwa njia mzuri. Wale wasee wote ambao wamefikisha miaka 65 na kuendelea juu, wote ambao wako katika taifa letu la Kenya, waweze kuandikishwa, wawekwe katika orodha mzuri, waanze kupata hiyo maruburubu sawa mara moja. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Speaker, nashukuru kunipa nafasi hiyo kuichangia, na hii mswada mimi naiunga, na nataka nyumba hii ipitishe haraka na serikali iweke pesa na hao wasee walipwe. Asante sana Bwana Speaker.
Asante sana. Nafasi hii itamwendea Bwana Adams Kipsanai wa Keyo Kusini.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Speaker. Vile vile ningependa kuchukua nafasi hii kuchangia katika hoja hii ya uandikishaji ya pesa ya wazee katika jamii.
na ningependa kumshukuru sana Mheshimiwa Zambia kwa kuleta hoja hii. Mheshimiwa Spika, kama tunavyojua wote, uchumi ya taifa yetu iko katika hali ngumu, na ni kwa kweli wazee wetu ambaye walifanya kazi mingi kujenga taifa wanapitia mazito, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo pesa hii itaenda kuwasaidia ili kuhakikisha kwamba wanaenda kukimu maslahi kama vyakula, madawa, kuisupport jamii yao kwa mambo kadha wa kadha. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia vizuri ni kwamba wale watu ambao wakongwe katika jamii yetu hawapewi kipaumbele na baadhi ya jamaa wao. Kwa hivyo pesa hii itawasaidia sana kukimu maisha hao. Ukienda kule mashinani, Mheshimiwa Spika, maswali kadha wa kadha ili kwamba ni lini tutapewa pesa hii ili tuweze kujisaidia. Kama kule eneo bunge langu la Keyo North constituency, eneo bunge langu la Keyo North, wazee wengi wanaulizia kwamba ni mtindo gani unaotumiwa ili kubagua kwamba mzee huyu amehitimu, ule mwingine bado. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri sana tuangalie ndiposa tuweze kuwaingiza wale wote ambao wamefika miaka 65 ama 60 kwenda huko mbele. Na kando na hiyo, nataka kuunga mkono yale contribution, mchango ambayo iliwekwa na ule mheshimiwa kwamba japo tunataka kuandikisha na kuhakikisha kwamba wanapata pesa hii, ni mpango gani utawekwa ili kuhakikisha kwamba wale ambao wanaenda kuipata wasije wakawa wanavamiwa. Na pendekezo mzuri ni kwamba iwapo watajulikana ni mzee huyu na huyu, ni vizuri pia kwa kuwahusisha wale machifu ama wazee wa mtaa ndio waweze kulinda hawa wazee hawa. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kuunga mkono kwa sababu wazee hawa wakiwa na pesa hii, jamii yao itawatunza kwa heshima, hadhi ambayo wanastahili. Kwa sababu tuko katika jamii ambayo kama una chochote ambao unajilinda nayo, maisha inaenda kuwa migumu. Kwa hayo na mengine mengi, shukrani sana, naunga mkono mswada huu. Asante.
Asante. Hii nafasi ni ya mbunge wa Kuisero.
Thank you, Speaker.
Dono Batandi, why are you carrying your hands up? I can see your name down here. You'll have your chance when the time comes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for according me this opportunity also to contribute to this motion by my good friend, Engineer Zambia, to ensure that there is continuous and timely registration of elderly in our society. Honorable Speaker, I also wish to recommend that we include people living with disability, orphans, and also people living under some acute conditions, Mr. Speaker. Having this process done, Mr. Speaker, one, it will guarantee good life to these senior citizens because they'll be able to procure and have enough food to support their lives and their families. Having these people registered on a timely basis, we also guarantee them good health care because they'll be able to access quality health care. Three, having enough and many of them registered will spur economical growth because, Honorable Speaker, there will be increased circulation of money and the high purchasing power will improve on our economy. But as we do this, Mr. Speaker, we must ensure that this process is done in a very fair manner that will ensure that all eligible or needy elderly are only ones who are registered, and ensure that those who are pensionable are not accorded an opportunity to be on this list. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, as we do the payments to these elderly people in the society, we must ensure that their payments are through electronic system. We've had challenges when we are paying these elderly because they crowd in one places. It is my submission that as we do this, we ensure that their payments are put on an electronic platform to ensure that there are no congestions, there are no fake people coming in between to block them and then ensure that they get their money at their point of need. Mr. Speaker, I submit. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Muchomba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First of all, allow me, Honorable Speaker, to congratulate the Honorable Zambia, a very aggressive lawmaker, a second-timer member of Parliament, who has decided to bring salvation to the elderly persons of Kenya. Congratulations, Honorable Zambia. You know, the elderly people of Kenya are somehow forgotten. The elderly people of Kenya have no voice. If such honorable members don't come to this house and represent them, they have no one to turn to. Honorable Speaker, allow me to say that the issue of elderly persons of Kenya is a very sensitive issue that needs to be given a lot of weight that it deserves. Reason being, these are the people who fought for the independence of the Republic of Kenya. These are the people who took care of us, took us to school, worked so hard to make Kenya grow economically, politically, and socially to where Kenya is. Unfortunately, most of these people, Mr. Speaker, when they retire as public servants, they do not have a medical cover, and that is the time they are very vulnerable to all manner of diseases, but they have no medical cover to take care of themselves. Honorable Speaker, the government of Kenya, through Article 57, is obliged to take care of the elderly persons of Kenya as recognized by the Kenyan Constitution. Unfortunately, we have been discriminative. We have provided the social assistance programs to these people discriminatively. We have entrusted the area chiefs and sub-chiefs to discriminate against our elderly persons when they go out for registrations for the social assistance program. I want first of all to make it very clear, Mr. Speaker, as a lawmaker, that I have invested very seriously in this sector of the elderly persons. For records, I already have a bill titled Geriatric Bill 2020. I tried to push this bill or to table this bill in the 12th Parliament, but I did not succeed to complete. I am excited because through the amendment of the standing order, I now have an opportunity to push this bill to the 13th Parliament, and it's already published, Mr. Speaker. Now, to add on to Honorable Zambia's motion, it is the right of the elderly persons of Kenya to get social assistance without begging through the chiefs and the sub-chiefs when there is registration. In the past, Mr. Speaker, the elderly persons were only allowed to get into the registry of social assistance program if they prove that they do not have a dignified house, or they prove that they don't have dependent children or caregivers who are earning well, a task that the area chief cannot be able to prove. And therefore, registrations were done discriminatively. There are so many elderly persons in the villages who do not receive the monthly stipends as they're supposed to receive just because they were discriminated against during registration. The fact that my mother lives in a stone house doesn't mean that she has an income. She could have gotten that house through her late husband who is no longer providing. She could have been working maybe somewhere and she had income, but now she's retired and she cannot even afford a cup of tea. And therefore, it is important for us to come up with a serious bill. We make law that will provide for a dignified social assistance program for our elderly persons of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, other than just the social assistance, we need to look at the health of these elderly people. We need to provide for the medical care for these elderly persons. Mr. Speaker, if you go to Kenyatta National Hospital, you will find all manner of doctors, and I'm humbled to see some of the doctors who have served in Kenyatta National Hospital in this house, the Honorable Dr. Nikal. Allow me to say it as it is. We have specialized doctors for children, we have specialized doctors for women, but we don't have specialized doctors for elderly persons. It is called geriatric medicine. If you go to all the institutions that are training medically, we do not have geriatric medicine trained in our local institutions. Mr. Speaker, when an elderly person is admitted in a ward, they are only allowed to go to a female ward or a male ward. But we don't have geriatric wards. We mix our 92-year-old man with a 26-year-old boy in the same ward. We give them the same food. We provide the same medical services to the same. It is time for us to create geriatric wards. It is time for us to introduce geriatric medicine in our hospitals so that we can dignify the health services for our elderly persons. Mr. Speaker, I can speak forever about elderly persons in this country because our elderly persons are even exposed. Their land is being taken forcibly from them by their sons and daughters. Our police force does not even have a way of protecting the elderly persons. By the way,
Muchomba, aren't you debating your bill?
I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm supporting Honorable Mr. Speaker, but I start guided.
I would request that you stick to the motion on the floor.
Thank you. So I want to say that the initiative that has been brought in this House by Honorable...
allow me to congratulate my friend, the Honorable Zambia, for coming up with this important motion, Mr. Speaker, touching on the cash transfer for the elderly people. And to state, Mr. Speaker, from the onset that I support this motion. But I support it, Mr. Speaker, beyond the continuous registration to actually asking this House, Mr. Speaker, to allocate resources to be availed to those old men who have been registered, Mr. Speaker. When this program was started way back, Mr. Speaker, it was targeted at the elderly poor who live below $1 a day. That is why you arrive at 2,100, because the dollar at that time was 70 shillings. When you multiply by 30, it comes to 2,100. But Mr. Speaker, as we talk now, the dollar is at 120. We need to register these old men and to increase resources to match to help these elderly to live quality life. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is also prudent that while we continue to register, we know that the dollar is now at 120, and therefore the cash transfer should go to 3,600 on the minimum, Mr. Speaker. But this, Mr. Speaker, requires this House to collectively support the Committee on Social Protection to avail resources so that when these elderly are registered, the resources find their way to the village where most of them are. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, as of now, only 853,000 elderly have been put on this program, against a target of 4 million elderly persons in the Republic of Kenya. The Social Protection Department in its BPS, Mr. Speaker, intends to add this by a paltry 100,000 older persons. We are asking this House, Mr. Speaker, to inject resources so that we can register even 2 million people into this program. And as we do that, Mr. Speaker, we must also ask the ministry to invest in technology so that our old men will stop going to queue in the offices of chiefs and assistant chiefs. And when they are paid, they are supposed to give a bribe so that they can get what is duly theirs. It is important, Mr. Speaker, that the ministry invest in technology that can even update the data of those who have been registered, to remove those who have been gone out on natural attrition, and we remain with a specific number, Mr. Speaker, of the real people to benefit out of this social program. And it is not expensive, Mr. Speaker, to ask the people of Kenya through this honorable House to support their elderly. Mr. Speaker, most of the time, you see even on this relief food, if we could map the areas where people are suffering from hunger and give them cash transfer. People can buy their own food instead of fueling lorries every other time and allowing corruption to thrive in every stage, so that we can help the people of Kenya to live a dignified life, Mr. Speaker. And this is in line with the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, especially where it says the elderly of Kenya deserve attention in equal manner. And Mr. Speaker, I support this motion. Thank you so much.
I suppose that is the chair of the Social Protection Committee. That's why he's passionate about this so much. The Honorable Nyamai Rachel.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia fursa hii niweze kuchangia mada hii ambayo imeletwa na mbunge wa the Honorable Thaddeus Zambia, mbunge wa Kilome, na nataka kumshukuru sana kwa sababu amekuwa akileta mijadala ambayo inasaidia wananchi, na pia amekuwa akifanya kazi nzuri sana kwa watu wa Kilome. Kwa hivyo kwanza nataka kumshukuru, na niseme ya kwamba mimi kama mbunge wa Kitui South, Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo hili la kuendelea kuandikisha watu ambao wamefikisha miaka 70 ni jambo muhimu sana kwa wananchi wa kwangu wa Ikudha, sub-county ya Ikudha na sub-county ya Mutomo. Kwa sababu mara ya mwisho watu walisajiliwa ilikuwa ni mwaka wa 2016, wakati tulikuwa tunakaribia uchaguzi. Na wale ambao walikuwa miaka 69 wakati huo, saa hii wamepitisha miaka 77. Na naunga mkono ya kwamba hawa watu wanafaa kuandikishwa mara moja kupitia kwa constituencies, na sana sana zile constituency ambazo ziko na zaidi ya sub-county 2 kama constituency yangu, wasiwekwe mahali pamoja. Kwa sababu utapata ya kwamba Mheshimiwa Spika, katika constituency yangu, eneo bunge langu la Kitui South, hawasajiliwi katika sub-county ya Ikudha, wanasajiliwa katika sub-county ya Mutomo. Mheshimiwa Spika, utapata ya kwamba hawa watu wengine wamezeeka, hata hawasikii, wengine hawaoni. Kwa hivyo hii inafaa ipelekwe katika sub-county yao, ipelekwe katika location, na ipelekwe chini mpaka kwa sub-location, na ipelekwe chini zaidi mpaka iende kwa wazee wa mtaa. Ndio wawe kama hawajajua wafikishiwe habari hiyo na wazee wa mtaa. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo lingine muhimu sana ni kuweka pesa ya kutosha. Iwe ya kwamba ile qualification ama ile kitu mzee anahitaji ni kufikisha tu miaka 70. Sio kupatia nafasi chifu ama assistant chifu ama DCC aambiwe yeye ndiye ataamua ni kina nani wataingia hapo, kwa sababu watu ni wachache. Kwa sababu tukileta hiyo inamaanisha ya kwamba hawa watu wanaweza kutengwa, wale ambao hawana watu wa kuwatetea, wale ambao hawawezi kujizungumzia, na wale ambao hawana watu wa kuangalia ambao wataweza kuzungumza kwa niaba yao. Jambo lile lingine Mheshimiwa Spika ni kuhakikisha ya kwamba wazee wote wale wako katika mradi huu wameingizwa katika NHIF. Nataka kushukuru sana NHIF ya kwamba saa hii wanajibu magonjwa kama ugonjwa wa saratani, wanafanya pia ile upasuaji specially ama ile inaitwa specialized surgery, kwa sababu hawa wazee ndio wako na hizo shida ambazo zinahitaji upasuaji, ambao wanahitaji madawa ya magonjwa kama hayo. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tunapoweka pesa ya kwamba katika mradi huu ni kwamba 2,000 haitoshi, na mbunge wa Kipkelion West na pia mbunge Thaddeus Zambia amesema ya kwamba hii pesa haitoshi 2,000.